Ms. Alana Brooks? We just need your final authorization before we proceed with the full liquidation of your mother's jewelry collection. I stopped breathing. The phone pressed against my ear felt suddenly heavy. I was standing in my kitchen, coffee mug halfway to my lips completely frozen. The morning sunlight streaming through my window seemed to dim. What liquidation? I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. The man on the other end from Hawthorne and Blythe Auction House cleared his throat uncomfortably. Your sister, Vanessa Brooks, submitted the pieces last week. She stated she has full authority to proceed with the sale. We have everything documented and ready. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I thought he might hear it through the phone. That collection belongs to both of us. Jointly. There was a long pause. Papers rustled in the background. I could hear him breathing, could sense his growing discomfort. Ma'am, I'm looking at our documentation now. Your name is listed on the estate papers as co-beneficiary. That's actually why I'm calling. We need both signatures for a collection of this value. It's our policy. The room tilted slightly. I set down my coffee before I dropped it, my hands already starting to shake. I never authorized any sale, I said quietly, my mind racing. Another pause, longer this time. More uncomfortable. I see. Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. Would you be able to come to our office this week to discuss this matter? I agreed and hung up. My hands were shaking violently now. My sister had tried to sell our mother's entire jewelry collection behind my back. My name is Alana Brooks. I'm 42 years old, and I work as a financial analyst for a mid-sized accounting firm in the city. I've spent my entire adult life being the responsible one in my family. The planner. The organizer. The person everyone called when things needed to be handled properly, when documents needed reviewing, when decisions needed careful thought. My sister Vanessa is 3 years younger, and we couldn't be more different. Where I'm cautious and methodical, she's impulsive and reckless. Where I save every penny and plan for the future, she spends freely and lives for today. Where I think things through carefully from every angle, she jumps first and asks questions later, if ever. Our mother understood this fundamental difference between us better than anyone. That's exactly why she structured her estate the way she did, with careful thought and legal precision. She knew Vanessa would need guidance, protection from her own worst impulses and tendency to make decisions without thinking them through. She knew I would handle things carefully, responsibly, with the respect her legacy deserved. Mom died 2 years ago after a brutal 6-month fight with pancreatic cancer. In those final months, even as her body failed her, she made absolutely sure everything was documented, organized, and legally protected. She held my hand one quiet afternoon in hospice and made me promise something I'll never forget. Take care of the jewelry together, she had said, her voice weak but clear. Both of you. Promise me you'll protect it together. I had promised. I thought Vanessa had too. Now I knew better. I didn't call Vanessa first. I needed to think clearly, and talking to my sister when I was this angry would accomplish nothing productive. Instead, I walked to my home office and pulled out the folder I kept in my filing cabinet. The one carefully labeled Mom's Estate in my neat handwriting. Inside were copies of everything important. The will. The complete asset inventory. The letters our mother had written to both of us before she died. Her final wishes, expressed in her own shaky handwriting. I had organized it all meticulously after the funeral 2 years ago, spending weeks making sure everything was properly filed and documented, while Vanessa had been too busy with her latest business venture to help with any of it. I found what I was looking for on the 3rd page. The jewelry clause was absolutely explicit, written in clear legal language that left no room for interpretation. Mom had left her entire collection to both of us jointly, not split down the middle into separate portions. Not divided by piece or value. Joint ownership requiring mutual agreement for any major decisions, especially sales. My mother had been incredibly specific about that particular detail. She knew how impulsive Vanessa could be, how she always needed money for her next big business idea that never quite panned out. Mom had protected her legacy carefully, thoughtfully. I read the clause 3 times to be absolutely certain I understood it correctly. There was no ambiguity whatsoever. No loopholes Vanessa could exploit. She couldn't sell anything without my explicit written consent. She had to have known that, which meant she had done something illegal to get around it. I picked up my phone and called her. Vanessa answered on the fourth ring, her voice bright and casual. Hey, what's up? Her tone was so unbothered, so normal. Like she hadn't just tried to steal our mother's entire legacy out from under me. I got a very interesting call from Hawthorne and Blythe Auction House today, I said, keeping my voice deliberately calm and measured. Silence. Complete silence. Then, after what felt like an eternity, Oh, I repeated, my anger building despite my attempts to stay calm. That's all you have to say? Just oh. She sighed loudly, dramatically. Look, Alana, I was going to tell you about it. I really was. When exactly? After you'd already sold everything and pocketed the money. Don't be so dramatic about everything. You don't even wear that stuff. You never have. It's just sitting in a vault doing absolutely nothing. I found a way to actually make it valuable, to turn it into something useful. I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles turning white. It's Mom's legacy. It's money, Vanessa shot back, her voice hardening. Money we could both use. Money that could actually help us instead of just gathering dust. I asked incredulously, because it seems like you were planning to do this entirely without me, without even mentioning it. Another sigh, this one annoyed. You always think you're the responsible one. The one who knows what's best for everyone. Well, I'm just doing what needs to be done. Someone has to be practical about these things instead of sentimental. I wanted to scream at her. Instead, I asked the question that mattered most. How did you plan to authorize the sale without my signature, Vanessa? There was a pause. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Harder. Colder. Don't worry about the paperwork, Alana. I handled it. Everything's taken care of. That's when I knew for certain. She had forged something. My own sister had committed fraud. I drove to Vanessa's condo early the next morning, before I could talk myself out of the confrontation. She lived in one of those sleek modern buildings downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows and a uniformed doorman. The kind of place that screamed expensive sophistication, even though I knew from our occasional conversations that she could barely afford the monthly maintenance fees. When she opened the door, she was already defensive, arms crossed tightly, jaw set in that stubborn way I remembered from childhood arguments. You didn't need to come all the way here, she said, not moving aside to let me in. Yes, I did. We need to talk about this face to face, not over the phone. She stepped aside reluctantly, clearly unhappy about my presence. Her apartment was immaculate as always, every surface perfectly clean and organized. White furniture that looked expensive but was probably financed. Abstract art on the walls. Fresh flowers on the coffee table. Everything carefully designed to project an image of success and sophistication. I got straight to the point, not interested in small talk. The auction house said you submitted authorization documents. How did you get those? Vanessa walked to her kitchen and poured herself a generous glass of white wine, even though it was barely 10 in the morning. I have copies of everything from Mom's estate. You know that. That's not what I asked you, and you know it. She took a long, slow sip, watching me over the rim of her glass. I signed what needed to be signed to move things forward. You can't sign for me, Vanessa. That's not how joint ownership works. Maybe I found a way around that little technicality. She met my eyes directly, and there it was. That smirk. That knowing, calculated, almost triumphant smirk that made my blood run cold. My stomach dropped completely. She had absolutely forged something. And she wasn't even trying to hide it from me anymore. 2 days later, Vanessa made her boldest move yet. Our aunt was throwing a birthday dinner for our uncle at her house, and the whole extended family would be there. I almost didn't go, knowing Vanessa would be there too, knowing it would be awkward and tense. But I refused to hide, refused to let her think she'd intimidated me. I was standing by the appetizer table talking with our cousin about her new job when Vanessa's voice suddenly cut across the room, loud and clear. Everyone, I need to say something important. The room quieted immediately. Conversations died mid-sentence. Vanessa stood near the fireplace, wine glass held dramatically in hand, looking every bit the wronged victim in some tragedy. Some of you may know that Alana and I inherited Mom's jewelry collection when she passed. Well, I found an opportunity to have it professionally appraised and sold through a very reputable auction house. The money would be substantial for both of us. Life-changing, really. I felt everyone's eyes shift to me, curious and slightly judgmental. But Alana is trying to sabotage the entire thing, Vanessa continued, her voice breaking slightly with manufactured emotion. My face flushed hot. That's not. She thinks I'm stealing from her, Vanessa interrupted, not letting me finish. After everything we've been through together. After losing Mom, she doesn't trust me. Her own sister. Our uncle set down his drink with a heavy thud. Alana, is this true? Why would you cause problems over something like this? I'm not causing problems, I said, trying to keep my voice steady and calm. I never agreed to sell anything. She never even asked me. Vanessa shook her head sadly, perfectly. She's just bitter that I found a way to turn old jewelry into real money instead of keeping it locked away. She wants to keep it locked away forever like some kind of morbid shrine to the past. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Heads nodded. I could see it in their faces. Just like that, with a few carefully chosen words, I was the villain in our family story. I left the party early, too humiliated and furious to stay another minute. In my car, hands shaking with rage, I called the estate attorney who had handled Mom's will. His name was Harrison Fletcher, and he had been our family's trusted lawyer for over 20 years. Mr. Fletcher, I need to see the original estate file. Not my copies, the actual originals from your office. He agreed to meet me at his office first thing the next morning. When I arrived promptly at 9, he already had everything laid out carefully on his large conference room table, organized and waiting. I pulled everything related to your mother's estate, he said, gesturing to the neat stacks of documents. Is there a specific problem I should know about? I'm not entirely sure yet. I need to verify something important. I went through every single page carefully, methodically, the way I approached everything in my life. The will was exactly as I remembered it, word for word. The jewelry collection was left to both Vanessa and me jointly, with explicit language. Any sale or major decision required both of our signatures. There was no ambiguity whatsoever. No loopholes, no exceptions. But then I found something I had completely missed before. Buried in the dense legal language. A protective clause Mom's attorney had included. If either beneficiary committed fraud or any form of misconduct related to estate assets, they would immediately and completely forfeit their rights to those assets. Mom had thought of everything, planned for every possibility. I looked up at Mr. Fletcher, hope rising in my chest. If someone forged authorization documents to sell estate assets, would that qualify as misconduct under this clause? His expression darkened immediately, understanding. Absolutely. That would be textbook fraud and misconduct. The auction house sent me digital copies of everything Vanessa had submitted as part of her application. I opened the files on my laptop that evening with a sense of dread. Not sure what I would find, but knowing it would be bad. There were detailed professional photos of the jewelry pieces, each one carefully lit and documented. Lengthy descriptions of materials, provenance, and condition. Estimated values that made my breath catch in my throat. Then I found the authorization documents Vanessa had somehow created. She had attached something called a sole beneficiary amendment to our mother's original will. According to this supposed legal document, our mother had apparently changed her mind 2 weeks before she died. She had decided to give Vanessa, and only Vanessa, complete control over the jewelry collection. The document looked official. It was properly dated. It had a notary seal that looked legitimate. And it was signed with our mother's full name in blue ink. I stared at that signature for a very long time, my mind working. I had watched Mom sign literally thousands of documents over the years. Her signature had a very particular flow, a distinctive style, a specific way she looped the B in Brooks, a certain slant to her letters. This signature was close, impressively close actually, but it wasn't quite right when you really studied it. The pressure was slightly wrong, the angle just a bit off, the flow not quite natural. It wasn't hers. I was absolutely certain. Vanessa had forged our dying mother's signature to steal our inheritance. I couldn't sleep that night at all. I kept thinking about Mom in those final brutal weeks. She had been so weak, so impossibly frail. The cancer had stolen her physical strength but never her mental clarity or her love for us. She had spent hours making absolutely sure everything was in order, that Vanessa and I would both be taken care of properly. She had been so explicit about the jewelry, so specific. "This stays with both of you," she had said, holding my hand with her thin, cold fingers. "Together. Promise me you'll protect it together. Both of you." I had promised her. I had meant it with every fiber of my being. The next morning, exhausted but determined, I called an old friend from college who now worked in commercial banking. I didn't tell her exactly why I was asking, just casually asked if she knew anything about Vanessa's current financial situation. "Oh, Alana," she said carefully, her voice dropping. "I probably shouldn't say anything. It's not really my business." "Please," I said. "I need to know." She hesitated for a long moment. "Vanessa's been going through a really rough patch financially. I heard she maxed out several credit cards. There was something about a business loan that went into default. Maybe other things too." My chest tightened painfully. "How bad is it really?" "Bad enough that people in banking circles are talking about it." "That's never a good sign." After I hung up, I sat in complete silence for nearly an hour. This wasn't about the jewelry being unused or impractical. This wasn't about being smart with assets. Vanessa was desperate, drowning in debt she'd hidden from everyone. She saw Mom's collection as her secret bailout, her way to solve everything. I started carefully researching the individual pieces in the collection, using the detailed inventory Mom had maintained. She had kept meticulous records of everything. Photographs, original purchase receipts, professional appraisals, historical documentation. Most of the jewelry was valuable but not extraordinary. Nice pieces accumulated carefully over a lifetime of special occasions. But then there was the sapphire necklace and everything changed. Dad had given it to Mom for their 20th wedding anniversary, just 3 months before he died suddenly of a heart attack. It was a rare Burmese sapphire, deep blue and flawless, surrounded by brilliant cut diamonds, all set in gleaming platinum. Mom had worn it exactly once at Dad's funeral, and then never again. After that it stayed locked in the vault, too precious and too painful to ever touch. I pulled up the auction house listing with trembling hands. The sapphire was featured prominently as the primary highlight lot, with professional photos and extensive description. Estimated value: between $200,000 and $300,000. Vanessa wasn't trimming unnecessary assets or being practical about unused jewelry. She was systematically gutting our family history, targeting the single most valuable and emotionally significant piece. The one irreplaceable thing that connected us to both of our parents. I felt physically sick. Mr. Fletcher called me 3 days later, his voice tense and serious. "Alana, I spoke directly with someone at Hawthorne and Blythe. They admitted something very concerning that I think you need to know about immediately." "What is it?" "Apparently, Vanessa has been in active contact with several private buyers, wealthy collectors. She verbally guaranteed delivery of specific pieces, including the sapphire necklace. They've made substantial conditional offers based entirely on her promises." I closed my eyes, feeling dizzy. "But she can't actually deliver anything without my signature." The auction house confirmed that. "Exactly right. If this sale collapses now, those buyers could potentially sue her for breach of agreement, for false promises. She's made legally binding commitments she has absolutely no ability to keep. Vanessa had promised money she didn't have. She had made commitments she couldn't possibly fulfill. And now she was trapped in a web of her own desperate lies. What should I do?" I asked, feeling overwhelmed. "You protect the collection," Mr. Fletcher said firmly, with absolute certainty. "And you protect yourself legally. If Vanessa is forging legal documents, this situation could escalate very quickly and very badly." That afternoon, I officially hired him to represent me in this matter. Not to attack Vanessa viciously, not to destroy her completely, but to make absolutely sure our mother's legacy stayed protected, no matter what happened. When he asked directly if I wanted to pursue criminal fraud charges against my sister, I hesitated for a long time. "Let me think about it carefully," I finally said. "Don't wait too long," he warned seriously. "She's already committed multiple crimes. The longer you wait, the worse it could get." Vanessa must have sensed something was happening, that I was taking action, because she sent a dramatic message to our entire extended family group chat that same evening. "I'm heartbroken to share this with all of you, but Alana is threatening serious legal action over Mom's jewelry collection. I tried to do something good and financially smart for both of us, and she's turning it into a horrible war. I honestly don't understand why she hates me so much. My phone immediately exploded with messages from relatives, one after another. Aunt Phyllis. Is this really worth tearing our whole family apart? Uncle Bernard. Your mother would be so disappointed in this behavior. Cousin Tessa. Can't you two just find a compromise like adults? I didn't respond to any of them. Anything I said would be twisted, misinterpreted, used against me. Vanessa had already poisoned the narrative completely and perfectly. I was the controlling sister, the bitter, jealous one, the problem that was ruining everything. I turned off my phone completely and sat alone in the dark. Mr. Fletcher filed a formal cease and desist letter with Hawthorne and Blythe first thing the next morning. The sale was paused immediately, frozen, pending complete resolution of the ownership dispute. Vanessa called me within an hour, absolutely screaming. You humiliated me. The auction house just treated me like a common criminal. How could you do this to your own sister? You forged Mom's signature, I said calmly, refusing to match her hysteria. You can't prove that. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can prove it very easily. Silence. Complete shocked silence. Mr. Fletcher is hiring a forensic document examiner, I continued steadily. A real expert. They'll analyze the signature on your amendment scientifically. If it's forged and we both know it is, that's fraud, Vanessa. That's an actual crime with real consequences. You wouldn't dare. Try me and find out. She hung up abruptly. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt a small measure of control slowly returning to me. The forensic examiner was a highly respected woman named Dr. Constance Huang. She had testified as an expert witness in over 200 criminal court cases, and had credentials and certifications that filled 3 full pages. Mr. Fletcher personally assured me she was absolutely the best in her field. She took 2 full weeks to complete her meticulous scientific analysis. When she finally sent her detailed report, I read it 3 complete times to make absolutely sure I understood every word correctly. The conclusion was definitive and damning. The signature on the sole beneficiary amendment was traced, not original or authentic. The pressure patterns were completely inconsistent with natural handwriting. The ink showed clear signs of hesitation and correction that wouldn't appear in a genuine signature. In my professional opinion, Dr. Huang wrote in her formal conclusion, this signature is unquestionably a forgery. Vanessa had carefully traced our dying mother's signature from another legitimate document and used it to steal our entire inheritance. I sat with that devastating knowledge for a very long time. My sister, the person I had grown up with, shared a childhood with, shared secrets and dreams with, grieved our mother's death with, had done this terrible thing. Word began spreading mysteriously in Vanessa's social circles. I didn't know exactly how the information got out, but suddenly people were talking, whispering. One of her creditors apparently showed up at her expensive condo building one morning, demanding immediate payment. The doorman had to physically escort him out of the lobby. Her carefully constructed image as a successful, sophisticated entrepreneur started visibly cracking. The frequent dinner parties stopped completely. The constant social media posts showing her glamorous life became less and less frequent. People began asking pointed questions she couldn't comfortably answer. Our aunt called me quietly one evening, her voice uncertain. Alana, Vanessa told us very specifically that you had agreed to the sale initially. I never agreed to anything ever, I said firmly. She said you changed your mind afterward and were just being spiteful and vindictive. I took a deep breath. Would you like to see the forensic document analysis? The scientific proof? I emailed her Dr. Huang's complete report. For 2 full days I heard absolutely nothing back from her. Then she finally called. Alana, I'm so sorry. I had no idea what was really happening. It was the very first time anyone in our family had acknowledged I might actually be telling the truth. Vanessa showed up at my apartment completely unannounced on a Tuesday night. I saw her through the peephole, pacing nervously in the hallway outside. When I opened the door cautiously, her face looked desperate, almost frantic. We need to talk right now. Please. I let her in against my better judgment and every instinct. You can't report this officially, she said immediately, before even sitting down. If this becomes public, if there's a criminal investigation, I'm completely ruined. Everything I've built is gone. You should have thought very carefully about that before you forged Mom's signature, I said coldly. I was desperate, Alana. I'm drowning in debt that I can't escape. I needed a way out desperately. So your solution was to steal from me? From both of us. She flinched visibly. I wasn't stealing from you specifically. I was going to split everything fairly. You would have gotten your share. After you controlled the entire sale. After you took your cut first. After you promised specific pieces to buyers without my knowledge or consent. Vanessa's expression hardened suddenly, dangerously. If you report this to the police, I'll tell everyone you manipulated Mom at the end. That you isolated her from me, and turned her against me deliberately. My chest tightened painfully. That's a complete lie and you know it. Who do you think they'll believe? The grieving daughter just trying to survive? Or the controlling sister who always needed to be right about everything? She was willing to destroy Mom's memory, to rewrite our mother's final months, just to save herself. That's when I stopped seeing Vanessa as just reckless or impulsive. She was actually dangerous. Mr. Fletcher and I met early the following morning to discuss our next steps carefully. I told him everything about Vanessa's threatening visit and her willingness to lie about Mom. She's bluffing desperately, he said with certainty. And even if she wasn't, you have extensive documentation. Medical records. Hospice notes. Witness statements. Everything clearly shows your mother was completely lucid and specific about her wishes until the very end. So what happens now? He pulled out the estate documents and found the clause. Remember that misconduct clause I mentioned before? If we can definitively prove Vanessa committed fraud related to the estate assets, we can legally invoke it. What would that actually mean? She would completely forfeit her rights to the jewelry collection entirely. Everything would transfer solely to you. I sat back uncomfortable. I don't want to take absolutely everything from her. I just want to protect what Mom left us. Then we need to be very strategic, Mr. Fletcher said carefully. We show her we have the legal power to take everything. Then we negotiate from that position of strength. It felt ruthless and harsh. But Vanessa had made this ruthless. Hawthorne and Blythe issued an official internal statement to both of us. They had conducted a thorough investigation and determined that Vanessa had deliberately misrepresented her authority. They were removing all items from auction immediately and returning them to secure vault storage pending complete resolution. The statement was professional, careful, and absolutely damning. They stopped just short of directly accusing Vanessa of criminal fraud, but the implication was crystal clear. That official paper trail would protect me completely if this situation escalated further. 3 days later, I received an urgent call from the private vault company where Mom's jewelry collection was stored securely. Ms. Brooks, we need to verify something important with you. According to our access records, someone accessed your mother's safety deposit box last month. Who accessed it? Your sister, Vanessa Brooks. She presented proper authorization from the estate settlement. My hands went ice cold. What did she remove from the box? We don't maintain a detailed inventory system, ma'am. We can only confirm access, not what was taken. I hung up and immediately called Mr. Fletcher in a panic. The sapphire necklace. I need to verify it's still there right now. We arranged an emergency vault inspection for that same afternoon. I met him at the facility with my key and complete authorization. The vault attendant led us down to the secure box. Inside was most of Mom's collection, still carefully wrapped and properly labeled. But the distinctive velvet case that held the precious sapphire necklace was completely empty. Vanessa had already physically taken it. Mr. Fletcher immediately made urgent calls to every high-end jewelry dealer and private broker in the entire region. By early evening, we finally had our answer. Vanessa had attempted to sell the sapphire necklace privately 3 weeks earlier, before any of this became public. She had brought it to a respected dealer specializing in estate pieces and requested a cash offer. The dealer had properly requested provenance documentation and clear title. When Vanessa couldn't provide either, he wisely refused the sale. She had tried to sell it anyway, before the auction, before any of this became public knowledge. She's been planning this systematically for months, Mr. Fletcher said grimly. This wasn't impulsive. This was calculated. We filed formal legal notice invoking the misconduct clause immediately. Vanessa's authority over the jewelry collection was suspended completely, effective immediately, pending full investigation. She would have to prove conclusively she hadn't committed fraud or forfeit her rights entirely. She called me that night, screaming so loud I literally had to hold the phone away from my ear. "You're destroying me. You're deliberately ruining my entire life." "No, Vanessa. You did that yourself. I'm your sister. Your only sister." "Then act like it," I said quietly and hung up. Aunt Phyllis called an official family meeting. She didn't ask permission from Vanessa or me. She simply announced it firmly in the group chat and expected us both to attend. We gathered at her house on Sunday afternoon. The whole extended family. Uncle Bernard, Cousin Tessa, even some distant relatives I hadn't seen in years. Vanessa arrived late, eyes visibly red from crying. She had lost noticeable weight. Her hair wasn't professionally styled. The careful polish was completely gone. "I want everyone to hear both sides fairly," Aunt Phyllis said firmly. Vanessa went first. She cried through most of it, talked about her crushing financial struggles, about feeling abandoned after Mom died, about trying desperately to find a solution that would help both of us. "I made mistakes," she admitted tearfully, "but I never meant to hurt anyone. I just wanted to survive." Then it was my turn. I didn't cry. I simply pulled out the forensic report and slid it across the table. "She forged Mom's signature," I said calmly. "This isn't about money or disagreements. It's about fraud." The room went completely silent as people passed around the damning report. Uncle Bernard looked up, his face gray. "This is real? This is legitimate?" "Yes." Vanessa tried to speak, but nothing came out. The room had shifted permanently. Over the next 2 weeks, Vanessa's carefully constructed world collapsed spectacularly. Her creditors filed multiple lawsuits simultaneously. The expensive condo she could barely afford went into foreclosure proceedings. The private buyers she had promised jewelry to threatened serious legal action for breach of contract. Her business reputation, built so carefully over years, evaporated overnight. People stopped returning her calls. Former clients quietly moved to competitors. Her social media presence went dark. I watched it all happen from a distance, feeling something strange between pity and justice. I did something Vanessa never expected. Something no one in the family saw coming at all. I placed the entire jewelry collection into a permanent private memorial trust in Mom's name. The trust had very specific rules. No sales permitted. Ever. The pieces would be displayed annually at a charity gala benefiting women, rebuilding their lives after financial hardship. Vanessa would receive access to structured financial counseling through the trust, but no cash. No control. No ability to liquidate anything ever. The sapphire necklace, once I legally recovered it, would be the centerpiece of the memorial display. When Mr. Fletcher filed the trust documents, he looked at me with something like respect. "This is remarkable, Alana. You're turning her betrayal into something meaningful." "It's what Mom would have wanted," I said simply. 1 year later, I stood in the elegant ballroom of the Grand Harbor Hotel at the first Brooks Memorial Foundation Gala. Mom's sapphire necklace rested in a museum-quality glass case under soft lighting, alongside photographs of her wearing it with Dad. People moved through the display quietly, reverently, reading the detailed plaques describing each piece's history and significance. The money raised would help women escape crushing debt, rebuild their credit, and start fresh. Vanessa attended quietly. She stood at the back wearing a simple black dress. No jewelry. No pretense. She looked at the sapphire for a long time, then at me. We didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. I had won, but not through destruction or revenge. I had won by building something meaningful from what she tried to steal. By honoring Mom properly. By turning betrayal into legacy. As guests mingled and talked, I felt something settle in my chest. Peace maybe. Or just the quiet satisfaction of knowing I had done the right thing. Vanessa had tried to sell our mother's memory for cash. I had turned it into something that would help people for generations. That was the inheritance that truly mattered.